Welcome back, folks, to Free My Pain Now with Dr. Matt Doduro. And today we have a special guest on the line. Samuel, let's bring her on. All right, we have Miss Shannon Euler on. Shannon, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Hi there.
So, Shannon, let me give our listeners and viewers a little background. I was lucky enough to meet you when I was out training Dr. Scott Kramer's clinic when we delivered a stem cell machine back on
That is
September
right.
10th.
Yeah, I will never forget that day.
We actually have it on video, and your lovely husband Darren, right, has been working with Dr. Kramer for how many years?
About 5 or 6 years now.
And he's a very nice gentleman. I really enjoyed. He actually did the first treatment on you, and I got to sit and observe. And to give our listeners a little background, you had actually suffered from back pain since you were 17 or 18. Is that correct?
Yes, I had a kind of rough and tumble childhood in a good way, but I had a car accident at 16, and then also the real serious one came when I was about 20. I fell down a flight of stairs with a 70-pound box in my arms, and I'm really flexible, so I think I did a lot of bending and hurting soft tissue stuff at that point. Over the weekend, like right after that, the inflammation and everything, the pain level blew up really bad. I ended up in the hospital and seeing a whole bunch of doctors before I even knew it. I had an orthopedic surgeon, a neurologist, a regular doctor, physical therapist, like the whole thing. And they all seemed to disagree on how best to invasively fix me, but they all seemed to, the one thing they seemed to agree on was that I had a degenerative disc disease issue throughout. I had herniated a couple of discs in my lower back, and I had pinched nerves down my right leg at that time, which was my chief complaint. It made it really hard for me to sit, stand, walk, do anything. And it was pretty constant. They did nerve conduction tests and x-rays and MRIs and a discogram procedure, which was extremely painful too. And I was really sensitive with all of this stuff. I had a lot of them tell me that I was very reactive to pain, which I guess is a nice way of saying you're a wuss. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a lot. And within a year of falling down the stairs, I went from being active young person with a music career, living in LA, having a day job, doing all the stuff I'm supposed to be doing, to on a walker, using a cane around my house and borrowing the jazzy cart when I went to the grocery store. It completely altered the course of my life.
I'm so sorry to hear that. My heart goes out to you. I didn't realize that you had that much pain and suffering until recently. And
Until.
yes, so you're in so much pain, and you're doing traditional medicine. And then, at what point do you decide to marry a chiropractor to save on co-payments, or what?
That's a joke I've made many times. Well, I after treating with all the doctors down there and listening to their advice, I decided not to do any of the surgeries and things that they were suggesting. And I moved back home and started going the natural route. And that's when I started to get a lot better. It was ambulatory. Chiropractic really saved me. And I got back into doing massage therapy, so trying to spread the healing around. And then I could work with chiropractors. Yay!
Yeah.
And get treated that way. I met my husband about 10 years ago, and I was doing pretty good at that time, and he certainly took good care of me and kept me going further. And then about 3.5, 4 years ago, I was swimming in the creek with some friends around here, and some other folks got kind of tangled up in the rocks, and we were all fishing them out, and I got swept downriver a bit and wedged up into a rock and came out of it okay. But like before, the next day, now my left leg didn't work anymore. I had huge nerve impingement on that side, and it was way worse than the first time. And
You ended
it
up
got
having to
really
have
bad.
surgery. You ended up
Yeah,
having to have
it
lumbar surgery.
then yeah, my husband was watching this whole process, and that nerve impingement reached a point where we knew if we didn't relieve the pressure surgically or somehow, it was going to become a permanent deal. So had to have the surgery, woke up from that in much less pain, but I also couldn't really feel the back of my left leg, like the calf, the entire outside of my foot. I could feel like pressure and sensation in my big toe,
Mhm.
but the rest of it was pretty numb, which is a blessing when you've been in terrible pain at first. But then
From
I kind of started to develop like drop foot and cramps and other issues that were also debilitating. And
yeah, and
that is when, go ahead.
and that's, I mean, listen, with the pain you were going through, you would be okay with having that drop foot and the muscle spasms, but unfortunately, you were not sleeping well. You had the inability to go up on your toes anymore. You lost that feeling behind your left knee and left calf, which
Yeah.
again, people, you're going to have some permanent damage, and you were probably in the mindset that you were going to have to live with it the rest of your life, correct?
Yes. Especially considering the initial prognosis I had been given at 20 years old, I was still doing a lot better than they had expected for me. But it's, you get into a mindset of like, I'm just going to keep getting worse, and accepting things that you can actually fight against and get better from. So I was getting woken up 3 or 4 times a night with these just excruciating cramps, and because I couldn't lift my foot, I had to get out of bed and do the "Oh God, I'm dying" dance, and and
Mm-hmm.
the drop foot and the lack of sensation and the inability to get up on my toes and stuff. It sounds like small things, but I live in a house with stairs, and I've had a couple of falls and a couple of almost falls, and it was all because I couldn't feel that leg. So I was getting pretty concerned for my future secretly.
So then along comes, I get to meet Dr. Scott Kramer through Kramer Family Chiropractic, and he's one of Dr. Dan Pompa's Health Center of the Future doctors, and he's an amazing gentleman. And he was like, I want one. I was at a mastermind seminar out in Park City. He saw it, and he's like, I need this. My community needs this. And within weeks, I was flying out there with my lovely wife, and we were training different doctors' offices in Northern California. And in Dr. Kramer's, the way we set it up, I said, listen, Doc, he goes, who do I get? How do we train? I said, well, just get 10 or 12 of your patients who've had chronic issues, who are just not getting better. He says, really? You want me to get the worst of the worst? And I'm like, yeah, get the worst of the worst.
Oh, I feel so special now.
And you were in that motley crew, by the way, Miss
Yay.
Shannon. And so you sat there, and we're in this open waiting room, and I'm training their staff and your husband and Dr. Scott, and you're seeing what's happening, and I'm giving people some heads up. I'm like, listen, you're gonna you're gonna feel it to heal it, and there is some discomfort involved with this. And the lithotripsy device and what this is, normally the time they put people under with anesthesia, and they break up a kidney stone, they target it. But with us, we need the patient awake. So this is a lower intensity. It's 20% of the strength of a large lithotripsy device. And I remember when it was your turn, we're like, okay, come on up. And they said, hey, this is a VIP patient. Make sure you take care of her. And I'm like, okay. And Darren came up, and we're working together on you. And be honest, tell us what you felt during the
It's a
treatment.
little zippy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little zippy. I mean, we're talking about 20 years of being hypersensitive about that area. And even when I worked as a massage therapist, I wouldn't let people even touch it hardly because
Mm-hmm.
I was so that plays a part in your overall perception. I watched all these other people go before me, and most of them seemed to experience little to no real discomfort. But I think my issue is perhaps a lot more hot
Mm-hmm.
and current, and it. I think I was scared more than anything because it's a new machine, and you don't know how. I didn't know at the outset exactly how long it was going to take and stuff like that. But as soon as it was over, like I felt a difference just getting up off the table. And
It's
in
almost
retrospect,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
almost immediately that a lot of patients will notice this targets inflammation. And patients will say, right there. And that's what you were saying to me, right there. Oh, as
yep,
much as it
yep,
hurt, we
yep.
knew that was the area. And I said something, and it's even in the video that we took that day. I said, the people who have more discomfort actually have better results. Do you remember me saying that?
I do. That kind of helps me hang in there. Because also I had an audience, and that
Sure.
added a different level to it all. But as I recall, it was light enough, as it were, on both sides. It wasn't just one side or the other. I had it. It was real sensitive to it on both sides, and
Hmm. It
I
was
felt
all
that
across there.
first. Oh yeah, I felt that first zap in my teeth almost. Like I just felt it through my whole body, and perhaps that adrenaline rush helps it work a bit. Because I
Hmm.
got up off that table and walked, over into the next room to sit for a minute, and I had been limping when I walked in there. I don't know if you saw me when I came in, but I was kind of limping and dragging my left foot when I came in because I was especially sore that day anyway from activity the day before. Um,
It,
and I was not limping when I got up off the table. I wasn't limping when I left 20 minutes later. And by the time I got home,
hmm
now at that point it was 30 or 40 minutes after the treatment. By the time I got home,
hmm
I was walking through my house, and do you ever go swimming and part of your body goes through like a warm spot or a cold spot that the
hmm
rest of your body isn't feeling? I mean, that's the best way I can describe what was happening with my left leg. I had gotten so accustomed to not receiving any sensory input or whatever from that leg that as I became aware of temperature changes, I was wearing a dress or loose pants and stuff. I kept turning around going, who's touching me? What is that? Oh, that's weird. And it took me a few times of that to realize, no, I'm feeling my leg, like, and it has just increased from there. I would say at this point, I've got almost full recovery of my foot, my leg, all of it.
That's amazing. When we come back, we're going to break for our commercials, and then we want to talk about you were featured on The Doctor. So hold on one second. Thank you. Welcome back, folks, to Free My Pain Now with Dr. Matt Doduro. And we have Shannon Euler on the phone all the way from Red Bluff, California. Is that correct?
Around out there, yes.
Way up Northern California. And we just talked about on September 10th of 2019, you experienced your first what we call mobile lithotripsy, which we've deemed the stem cell machine because it actually activates your own endogenous stem cells to become activated. And within 8 to 10 weeks, which we're not there yet, but I guess we're getting close, now your body's own stem cells have migrated to that treated area. And so you were just talking about, you got your first treatment. It was about 8 days to, I think, September 18th, you had your second one. Dr. Scott was good
Right.
enough to record that, and you had already started noticing some difference and some feeling coming back. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. And the agonizing leg cramps I've been experiencing every night stopped from the first treatment. So a week later, I hadn't had cramps anymore.
And so you were sleeping better?
Sleeping so much better.
How important is that
Difference
for your body?
overall.
How important is that for your?
So huge. I feel like a smarter person now. Not getting adequate sleep just affects so many things, memory and cognitive function throughout the day. So that alone was a big, big deal for me.
And then before your third visit on October 11th, and I'm showing my producers, this is her testimonial, but it was pretty amazing because you did a pirouette. You went up on your toes. You danced
Yeah.
around. And what's funny is, I mean, it was just a very moving testimonial, and it was honest and true, and it speaks to so many other people out there who suffer from this type of agonizing back pain. But in the meantime, I'm in talks with the show The Doctors, and they're biting. They want to feature this device, and I pitched it as, is this the next stem cell machine? So they were really excited, and they said, look, we need somebody with a good story, and we have great stories every week, but there was something about your testimonial and your energy, and it was a lot different from when I met you, a month earlier. And so I
Yeah.
said, "Oh my gosh, I got this wonderful patient, and she's in California." I was hoping they were going to fly you down, but,
Right.
but they tell us a little bit about that. They Rachel Glass, who was one of the producers, kind of hooked us up. I hooked you guys up, and tell us a little bit about what went on the show.
Well, they were all very nice, of course, very professional folks. And I was just so pleased to have an opportunity to kind of spread some good news. Yeah, and I wish if I had known about this machine myself a couple of years ago, maybe I wouldn't have needed surgery. It really was a life-changing thing. So I was happy to get that 90 seconds up there to say, hey, this totally helped me so much. It's
Hmm.
miraculous.
Yeah, and I mean, I was excited because you wrote. Is it okay if I wrote what you wrote to me in a text? Can I read what you wrote?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I said, hey, Shannon, I'm starting my own fan club for you. Thank you so much. And you said, oh, thanks so much for facilitating this opportunity. I was very happy to play a small part in getting the word out about this device. It's truly changed how I think about my future. And you said, for the first time in 20 years, which is half of my life so far, I have hope that I can get better instead of just hoping I won't get worse. That makes all the difference in the world, especially to someone with a lot of life left to live. So again, thank you.
Exactly.
I mean, and it goes both ways because, and I think you're starting, and so is your husband, and Dr. Scott is seeing that this is truly an amazing device, and it needs to be in every major city in America for people to have this type of option. And I can't thank you enough for sharing your story and really going out on the ledge. And that's not easy for people to expose themselves to what you've been going through. So thank
It was
you.
a hard thing to go through. It's been a hard part of my life, but I know a lot of people go through pain, similar pain, and if I can get out there and share that part and get through to them and get somebody else to take that step in the right direction to try this thing, then it was worth it. 20 years, it was worth it.
And Shannon, that's exactly why it helps so many other people, because once people see you, who a young woman who's had suffering and pain in their life, and then all of a sudden you have, and it's not 6 or 8 months of treatments. It was 2 or 3 weeks of treatment and a couple sessions, and it's mind blowing what happens. And so when someone else sees, hey, Shannon is just like me. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and I have back pain. I have issues. If they can help her, they sure as heck may be able to help me. And that's really what it's all about, is getting that message out. So thank you. I'm excited. When do you know when it's going to be featured on The Doctors?
They said in about a month, so mid-November sometime. I don't have a date yet, but I'll let you know when I do.
Well, thank you so much, and my best to your family and Dr. Darren as well. Please give everybody a shout out there, okay?
I will, and thank you so much. Keep doing the good work.
All right. Thank you, Shannon. Have a good afternoon. Wow. I mean, that's what we're talking about. I mean, we have started a public service campaign. It's actually called For the Patient. And it's the number 4 and then the word the patient. Because that's what it's all about. In these busy times, CNN has headline breaking news of every new drug that's coming out on the market that's going to help someone with psoriasis or irritable bowel syndrome. I mean, for some reason, we're not getting much coverage on the stem cell machine and what's happening. We had some wonderful testimonials today, but one of the things that we were looking at and which we want to highlight for the month of November coming up is chemo-induced peripheral neuropathy. It is one of the worst side effects to undergoing chemotherapy that a patient can experience. It is damage to the small sensory nerves that are important for the protective senses to keep us safe in our environment. They let us know if we touch something hot to move our hand. If we get a splinter in our foot, we know it's there. If we step on a hard object or it's stuck in our shoe, we know it's there. And chemo-induced peripheral neuropathy is damage to those small sensory nerves. And chemotherapy has been very beneficial for extending patients' lives, but it also can be very damaging in taking the body to the brink of death. So it can damage all the other fast-acting replicating cells, like your hair, like your skin, like your nails, and like the sensory nerves. They're constantly dying off and being replaced and replicated. And so the chemo is attacking the fast-acting replicating cancer cells as well as the good cells in our body. So, about 3 years ago, a group of students from Georgia Tech came to my office and said, we, as freshmen, we had a class we're taking and we have to address one of the problems in the United States or the world. And we wanted to address chemo-induced peripheral neuropathy. And they saw all my videos on YouTube and they're like, you seem like the only person doing anything out there. So I walked them through everything we're doing. And I showed them how we're having a 90% patient satisfaction rate with this debilitating condition. So remember, if patients' nerves get fried, they have to stop chemo. And that may affect their life expectancy or how much they're going to be able to shrink that tumor. So, with my team a few years ago, we said, how can we make a significant effect on the health and well-being of our nation? And even though we're up against some really tough odds, I was forced when my wife, Sherry, went through stage 3 breast cancer, and we had to use everything we had in our powers to get her through that. And I remember after the second chemo session, she got neuropathy so bad in her hands and feet, she couldn't button her own clothes. She couldn't hold a toothbrush. She couldn't hold a fork or knife. And I had to put some of these to the test right then. And nearly 5 years later, my wife is virtually cancer-free and was able to go through all her chemo treatments and complete her therapy. You can hear the whole full episode on podcast 1 with my favorite patient in the world, Miss Sherry Duro. Okay, with that, we'll be signing off. We had some excellent talk today with Miss Shannon Euler, who had experienced some wonderful relief with the stem cell machine and how it helps accelerate and activate your own natural healing abilities. And she's proof, and it was such a great story. It will be featured on the nationally syndicated show, The Doctor. Sammy, did I tell you they said I have a face for podcasts? I didn't get on. It is a shame. But I'm a scary little dude. So thank you so much. And until next week, we look forward to it.